And it depends upon the kind of supportive environment that they have, because see, if a person is even having the confidence coming out and trying to build relationships, trying to have more consistent attachment with someone, trying to be, but if he's not getting the same kind of response, then probably that would fail. But I think even if that fails, I just hope that having that kind of animal bond would provide some source of comfort.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Therapeutic podcast. As the name suggests, this podcast is everything about therapy and mental health, hosted by two counseling psychologists who have a lot to say and who would otherwise just sit beside a fireside and talk about it. So instead, here we are. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. We did not upload for a few days because I was on an unofficial mental health break, but I'm back after ghosting Meenal for a few days. And today, our topic is animal assisted therapy, and we thought of the most suitable candidate for this podcast, which is our teacher and our mentor, Dr. Georgitta. So, we met Georgitta ma'am during our master's. She's a postdoctoral fellow at the Center for Neuroscience at the Indian Institute of Science, and she has done her research has mostly been around animal intervention and animal based therapies. Her dissertation basically examined visual attention to animals in children with autism and the benefits that they received from animal assisted interventions using an eye tracking paradigm. So, ma'am has mostly worked with animals, and we also know that she has a lot of pets with her at home. So she can probably tell us more about animals. So, ma'am, we can start by you telling us what exactly is animal assisted therapy.
You can call me Georgita. I think I'm not very used to ma'am right now. So yeah, I think, and thanks for having me, because this is again an area that I love talking about. I don't get to talk about this very often. So yes, what is animal assisted therapy? Before I go into what is animal assisted therapy, I'll probably talk a little bit about the terminologies, because this field is also relatively new. There is a lot of confusion around the terminologies, which a lot of professionals have now kind of smoothened out. So let us talk about an umbrella term, animal assisted intervention. Okay, that is the umbrella term, which is also abbreviated as AAI. And what AAI means is a host of activities wherein you are incorporating or utilizing an animal, or different species of animals. We'll talk about the species probably later. So different species of animals, and which is beneficial to the health of both. Of course, you're talking about human health outcomes, what is beneficial to human health, but you also are talking about what is also beneficial to the animal and what doesn't impede the welfare of the animal. So that is this umbrella term, animal assisted intervention. And underneath, you can bring in a lot of these subdivisions. One of these is animal assisted therapy. When you're talking about animal assisted therapy, you're talking about a setting wherein there is a therapist involved, a qualified therapist. It can be a psychologist, it can be an occupational therapist, a speech therapist, a number of variety, or a physical therapist, a physiotherapist. Either are certified and have knowledge about interventions themselves, or are assisted by someone who has a knowledge of animal assisted interventions. And there are particular goals in place. There is a therapeutic goal in place. For instance, if it is a physical therapist, the goal is that the child, suppose, and you're dealing with a child who has an impairment, the goal is that the child has to walk a certain number of steps. And maybe the child doesn't have motivation by himself to do it, but probably if there is a therapy animal, say a therapy dog, whom the child can hold, the leash and walk, and the child is motivated to do that. So there is a specific goal in mind that this is what we have to achieve in a certain number of sessions. That is what is therapy. And that comes under this umbrella of animal assisted intervention. There are different things which also come under this umbrella. Apart from animal assisted therapy, which we abbreviate as AAT, we can also talk about animal assisted education, AAE, wherein the therapy animal helps in the educational process. It can be a teacher who takes a an animal or a visiting animal to school, or a child reading to an animal because the child is, having a lot of inhibition in reading, so reads to an animal. So there are a variety of things which come under animal assisted education, including teaching children how to deal with companion animals and others. Then we also have animal assisted activities, AAA, wherein you have a host of things you would do without a therapeutic goal in mind, and not necessarily in the educational setup probably, but a lot of things. For instance, taking a visiting animal to a hospital wherein you have patients, and they just feel better seeing an animal visiting them. So that is an example of AA. And finally, this is very important because this is coming post-COVID, that there is ARE, what we call as animal related engagements, which also includes virtually, probably seeing an animal. And because, in COVID times, there was very little people could do. Like you as a therapist cannot take a visiting animal to a facility or visit someone who's probably suffering from COVID, or there is this entire norm of social distancing in itself. So they found that, but that doesn't need to stop, you enjoying the benefits of companion animals. So it can be a host of things wherein probably you are looking at an animal through you have a Zoom meeting, and you have, your therapy animal there in the Zoom meeting. You're just watching an animal, or you're watching an animal through a window, or the animal is, you're having a parade or something of animals, and you're watching and you're feeling good about it. People found a lot of innovations of how they could, get the benefit of animals in a virtual setup, and that is what is animal related engagement. So that's the umbrella, AI. Underneath you have, right now we have 4, we have many others which may be included, including service animals. So yeah, that's how it's, kind of just a broad view of the structure.
I think briefly it says a lot about. We've always said that dogs are the best friends of man, and when you were explaining all this term, actually, while I was reading about animal assisted therapy in itself, this question was always there at the back of my mind, that we are at the end employing animals for our own bed, right? And I'm very glad that you mentioned that it's also that we keep in mind the welfare of the animals. So yeah, I mean, that clears my doubt. But can we elaborate a little bit upon what do we mean when we say that we take care of the welfare of the animals too?
The first step is, what are the species of animals that you're incorporating into therapy? Because if probably someone is interested and they would read about, some of the animal assisted, you would see terms like dolphin assisted interventions and things like that. So that is where the welfare of the animal is compromised, because dolphins are supposed to be in the wild. They are not supposed to, they may not enjoy the kind of interactions that another companion animal would enjoy with humans. So the first step when you talk about welfare is the choice of species. So or the choice of species that are usually used in a animal assisted therapeutic setting are domesticated animals who thrive in the company of humans. So it can be dogs, it can be cats, it can be guinea pigs, or it can be rabbits, it can be gerbils, it can be, alpacas, depending upon where you are situated, depending upon the animals that are available to you. And it can even be, I think, if you talk about the Indian setting, you can also talk about farm animals. The same thing has happened abroad as well. But you can talk about farm animals, or those animals who are in close contact with humans. So definitely you are not bringing them out of their natural habitat and putting them in a scenario where their welfare is anyway going to be compromised, whatever best you do. Secondly, every animal is not a therapy animal. And I think it's a mix of temperament and training. Firstly, the animal should be comfortable. So if you would see a litter of puppies, anytime you would go and see a litter of puppies, you would know that each puppy has a different temperament. Similar to, siblings, like children in the same family with the same parents have very different temperaments. Some animals are one person animals, even if they are like pets. They probably like one person. They are not comfortable with a lot of people crowding around them. Whereas some pets are okay with that. So there is a lot of temperament testing that you see ahead of hand for species where it is possible. For other species, it is early socialization. Let us talk about guinea pigs. They can be very well socialized if they are used to human touch, human presence, human sound from a very, very early age. If you allow that, they'll come up to you. They'll be fine with, being there. But if not, if you have not socialized them from an early age, and this I think applies to all species, in fact, if you do not socialize them, if they are not accustomed to being around people, being around different settings, different sounds, different smells, probably, and you take them to a new setting, they'd be scared. So their welfare is definitely compromised. So the second step is early socialization and consistent socialization. And if the animal is not getting comfortable, fine. Every animal need not be a therapy animal. You need not force an animal to be a therapy animal. And training, as of now, the norms say that, of course, you have to have certain training standards for animals, but the extent of training is again debatable. Of course, the animal should have enough training to, uh, leave something on command, or, to probably not attack someone, or probably, not show too much of behaviors which can be risky to people around them. So that's the training I would talk about. Then very importantly, you should be, as a therapist, the training of the therapist. When I say training, the training of the therapist becomes even more important than the training of the animal, that you should be able to recognize stress symbols. You should be knowing what your animal, the signals your animal, because your animal is your co-therapist. So you need to know what your co-therapist is going through and what are the stress signals. So sometimes it's very important also to know about species-specific behaviors. For instance, if you have a dog and your dog is surrounded by people and the dog starts yawning, people usually associate yawning with sleep, but that is also a stress signal. Yawning is a stress signal because, that's the oxygen deprivation. The dog is getting
Yeah.
stressed out. Similarly, you often associate some very specific behaviors, for instance, baring the teeth and all. That is considered very specific of, a threat perception. But a therapy dog that is well socialized, that is trained, may not show that kind of aggression, but still may be uncomfortable. Just shaking its body repeatedly, drooling, yawning, all of these can be signs of stress. So you have to know that, okay, you have to be educated enough to know that my animal is stressed out, even if it's a therapy animal, even if it's trained, he or she needs a break. So you have to give that animal that break. So I think these are the basic.
And when you were talking about how post-COVID people have started using online forums to, use dogs also in therapy, that actually reminds me when we were presenting our paper for APA, we had a section for a break room where we could go and look at puppies. And I think
Yeah.
I don't remember sending you a picture or a video of it, telling you,
Yeah,
ma'am, look
you
at this.
did. Yes,
But that actually did help me. I mean, it was fun. Obviously, when I logged in, the puppies were still asleep because of the time difference. But
yes,
then later, when they did wake up, it was fun to just watch them, just little
yes.
bodies moving around here and there. But then also, ma'am, while you spoke about, you mentioned service dogs, right? So, from what I've seen, like from videos of service dogs, these service dogs are usually only employed for people that have physical ailments. And they are trained to probably tell their human that, okay, you know what, your glucose is going down, your PP is going down, so you need to relax. Can that also be used for people with mental health issues as well? Like, can you train dogs to know that, your human is now probably having an anxiety attack or probably having a panic attack and you need to help them in a certain way?
There are definitely. So there are a lot of service dogs who are trained. So if you look into one of the largest section of service dogs, these support veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. So they are animals who are trained to support. So we can talk, some of them are specifically trained for a certain disorder. So that is why we call them like, service dogs who are trained to recognize symptoms of an impending panic attack and anxiety attacks, to support the person through that, make sure that nothing, the person doesn't take any extreme step. And also, if not, just to be there all through, even if the person is not having a panic attack, even if the person is not having an anxiety attack, just be with the person, like constant support. So for certain other people who have a host of symptoms, you also have this category, emotional support animals, but which is also often abused category, because people bring in all sorts of animals saying that, okay, this is my emotional support animal. So it becomes very important to understand that when does a person need something like that, and what is the training or certification or a temperament of an emotional support animal, because there are a lot of airlines also which allow emotional support animals to travel with the patient. or with the person. But because it is so abused, people just find that this is an easy way to probably, get their pets from one place to the other by just labeling them as emotional support animals. But yes, and there's a lot of research that is done about the benefits that these animals have, not just for the patient, but also for the families. So it's like a entire setup being, held together, or, being benefited together by that particular animal.
When you were talking about this, and while I was reading about, the how does this therapy actually work, I don't think I have a clear answer to this, that what exactly about the animal's presence works for the humans, or is this the way they look or the way they present themselves, or is this the bond, or what about it actually works? And since
I
you
think
have a lot of animal experience, and I know you how much you love your pets, so I think we'll get a lot of personal anecdotes also to understand what exactly works for people who love animals.
I think we have a bunch of anecdotal evidence, but the challenge is to bring science behind it, and that's probably what we're dealing with. So, I mean, I think animals are an entire package. It becomes very difficult to separate out and say that, okay, this is the thing that works. But, or maybe what happens within us in the brain, I would say. What triggers, we don't know. It may be the touch, because we have a very multisensory experience when you're dealing with an animal. So it is a live animal. Of course, you can probably, if you look into animal fur in itself, or the touch of an animal, the feel of an animal, uh, you may say that you can replicate it with, different fabrics or fibers probably. But there's a very different thing when you touch something alive. Okay, something alive is a different notion altogether. There is something of that aliveness quality. Secondly, they say there is a lot of unconditionality that you get from an animal, unconditional love that you get from an animal. Because at least, of course, I don't believe that animals are that unconditional. Also, animals do have their conditions. You have to understand that. If you say that animals are totally unconditional, I feel somewhere you are compromising on their welfare. They do give their signals, but probably they are not judgmental the way humans are. That is what I can put in. So you can be yourself with an animal without probably thinking too much about it. So there is a lot of difference between an animal presence and a human presence. So animals bring out something more basic in us, which is probably like lost because we have a lot of sophistication as humans. We have a sophisticated language system. We have a sophisticated system of judgment by which we judge each other, we don't need to keep up all that pretense with animals. So I think a lot of that, and I think a similar effect also comes with children, with babies. I think we have something similar that happens, because when you are with children, even the way you talk, the way you behave, very young children, it becomes different because you are losing that pretense around you. And that is the kind of effect animals bring. And that is why we have some research which says that it may be, neoteny. Neoteny is the baby-like features. If you talk about, physical neoteny, and most of these animals have baby-like features. And dogs, in fact, have been bred for baby-like features, which I don't support that much. But you also have, but let us talk about a dog such as a German Shepherd, or what we call a Alsatian, dog. And you would still like the dog, even though the features are not exactly baby-like. They are more wolf-like. But probably there is behavioral neoteny. The way they behave is, kind of more innocent, more childlike. So it can be behavioral neoteny. It can be physical neoteny, say in a golden retriever, in a Pomeranian, or any in a guinea pig. All of these, make us happier, and they release all the happy hormones, particularly oxytocin. So they say that, the social bonding hormone. And that is why they say that animals are also social lubricants. You're more likely to talk to a person who is probably walking a dog rather than just talk to a person who is just walking. Because there is some social lubricant. You can talk about that animal and then you can talk to the person, So those kind of things. I do feel that apart from animals, there can be other things in nature also, as I said, babies, who can create that kind of impact. But yeah, animals, I think, are more convenient as compared to, babies, or, you cannot always have a baby with you, but you can always have a pet with you. So babies do grow up, pets do stay that way. So all of these work together to bring in the kind of benefits that we get. But still, I think we have not determined that what exactly triggers this. Probably these are the things that we can, talk about, the broader perspective.
Uh, if we are talking about the visual aspect of it, and at the risk of sounding shallow, I have to ask you this question. When we talk about the visual aspect, I've seen people have as pets different kind of animals as pets, right? So people do have some sort of lizards, or even snakes or frogs, and other kind of reptiles. So visually, I can say that when we think about the cuteness factor, dogs do take the first stance in it. So is it going to be the same with people who have the other animals as pets?
I'm not sure about it. I think somewhere at a very popular level, dogs would top the list, followed by, because dogs again maintain eye contact with you. Like they look into your eyes more than any other species for that matter. So they do. So that is why we call dog eyes and all those, kind of phrases come in, because, puppy eyes, they do maintain, because probably they evolved that closely with humans. They are the longest, the earliest species to be domesticated. But other animals also do maintain eye contact. Even if you talk about farm animals, you talk about cows. And secondly, I feel, although I have my own reservations regarding keeping reptiles and others as pets, because again, I feel they are not exactly animals that are uh, can be considered as companion animals. Not all reptiles. See, frogs or lizards still fine, but when you talk about snakes, things like that, there are other components because they are also supposed to be in the wild. And but I think sometimes what I have seen is the more time you spend with a creature, the more attuned you become to its behaviors. So it may not be physical neoteny, but it may be behavioral neoteny. Like you may find certain behaviors even of a lizard cute, but again, there will be a lot of perceptual differences in this. I think it depends upon what you are used to, what you find fascinating, and probably like if probably I feel like if children are born in a family where these species are commonly seen as pets, they are used to seeing them from a very young age. Probably they become attuned to that kind of behavioral intricacies, behavioral neoteny, and they become attached. So I feel it depends a lot upon the kind of experiences you have and the amount of experience you have with different species, that you begin identifying the behavioral intricacies of that and find it cute or pleasurable. But again, people differ a lot in that. I would say I have my own preferences. That's why you say dog person, cat person, things like that, because I think we have very strong preferences on what we find you know attractive.
True.
Ma'am, while I was also reading, I read, there was a mention of how people that have disorganized attachment styles, they
Mm.
benefit the most from animal assisted therapy or intervention, and they say that because those humans usually have lower levels of oxytocin. So the thing is, how does, let's say if there is a person with a disorganized attachment style and we do, help them with animals, how does that person then take that learning and use it with other human beings? I mean, there is a possibility that they might only just develop their attachment with animals only, right? I mean, because again, unlike animals, humans might, there is always a response, right, that humans might give that might trigger something in them. But with animals, like you mentioned also, like it's unconditional. So they
Yes.
might not have send in that kind of judgment or behave a certain way that might trigger a certain response from them.
See, social facilitation, as you would say, where there is a transfer of benefits from a human animal interaction to a human human interaction. I'm not sure whether it will happen in every case. There can be cases where it happens, where the person becomes, because the person has developed an attachment, say a consistent attachment with an animal, the person feels overall more confident in his or her relationships. Because if the person in real life with another human is unable to form a consistent attachment, it's also because of some deficits that he or she has, or probably he or she lacks the confidence because he or she has not experienced success in such a relationship. So probably, I would say the relationship with an animal will give them the first taste of success of having a consistent relationship, probably. So if that gives them the confidence, at a personal level. Of course, they cannot control how another person behaves with them, another human behaves with them. I think what they can be, the kind of benefit they can get is they becoming more confident in their relationships, knowing that they have, they have formed some kind of attachment. There is someone that they can come back to and use that. Secondly, as I said, again, if they face some kind of rejection, maybe because of their past or because of other issues that they have had, at least that they know that they have one relationship that they can fall back on. It depends from person to person, and it depends upon the kind of supportive environment that they have. Because see, if a person is even having the confidence coming out and trying to build relationships, trying to have more consistent attachment with someone, trying to be, but if he's not getting the same kind of response, then probably that would fail. But I think even if that fails, I just hope that having that kind of animal bond would provide some source of comfort.
Ma'am, as a person who is, first of all, very scared of animals in general, and most of the time it's neutral, and there are people who are not very fond of also animals or being around animals. Do you think it would, if they were to spend some time with animals, not having as pets, as you mentioned, simple interventions or ARE, if they use way, do you think they would or their brain would have the same effects as people, compared to people who do love animals?
I would not say same effects, but I would definitely say that possibly, like, see, because even in therapies or even in interventions, there are some interventions which work for some people better than the others. So it may not be that one intervention or something which works as well for one person works the same way for another person. Secondly, if you are scared of animals, if you have some negative experiences with animals, it can also lead to an opposite kind of, if it is a very unplanned interaction, it can have opposite effects. So if you are scared, if you have had negative experiences and still you want to, at a base level, what I would say is I believe in biophilia, that we have an innate attachment with nature, not just animals, all elements of nature, because we are a part of nature. We are also human animals. So we have that innate tendency to connect with other elements of nature, and we need to be in, kind of sync with that. But not everyone may be in that much of a sync. Some people may love, nature, love animals. Others may not have that much of emotions. Probably the benefits may not be that huge also. So the crux is to take a balanced approach. If you just don't like animals, maybe this doesn't work for you. You can look into, you can listen to music, you can do other things, whatever works best for you works best for your mental health. If you're scared of animals, still you want to try out, you like animals, you have had some negative experiences, you are scared, take a stepwise approach. Go with a person who is well versed with animals. Don't add to your negative experiences by going to someone's pet whom you do not know how that pet would react. Neither the pet's fault, neither your fault, but you end up with one more negative experience. But if you ask me very personally, I would say that even if you tell me that you don't like any aspect of nature, you don't like animals, don't, still spend some time connecting in virtual ways, see from a distance. I think somewhere it may not be the kind of benefit a dog lover or a cat lover or an animal lover or, anyone has, but you will still benefit.
I think I agree with what you said about at least virtually. I don't think I fall in the neutral phase. I like animals, especially dogs, but again, I'm scared of the behavior. I mean, they might not like me, or I have this thing that if I get scared, they'll know that I'm scared and they'll come and attack me. That's my thought process. But Instagram has really helped because I follow like a lot of dog pages. So when I look at them, I'm like, oh, cute. And then there's also a dog in my building as well. I'm scared, but then I look at him from my balcony and just feel happy. Oh, cutie, just come wagging his tail, and then he's gone again. Nice. But
I
then
say
also,
that if you're scared of an animal, see it in a smaller package. If you're scared of the dog, don't see the dog. Go and check out a puppy and see the puppy grow. Because I think
yeah.
I also had a phase where I was scared of dogs. Still dogs came to my house. When I had pets, you see a puppy growing up, and then you become so tuned to the species that you become like, it's just like, when your mom is going to be angry, you can decipher her expressions very well. the same happens. You live with a species you know very well. Then that's where you stop being scared, because you know what's the extent and what's the, kind of behavior.
Since we are talking about this, ma'am, we would love to hear from you how, your life has been impacted with animals being in them.
I think my entire life now is, kind of, I think my personal life or my career, everything has been tuned. But I also had phases. I wouldn't say that, from childhood, I wanted to be, I liked animals. But like many of us, I was also scared, because I remember initially when I was young, my cousin brother, he had a dog, which was also like kind of our family dog. But I was scared of the dog. I loved the dog, but I was scared of the dog, similar to what Zainab was saying. So I was like, I want to do something for him, but I don't know what to do for him. I don't want to go anywhere near. So I remember, making sure I used to make something, cook, try to help my mom in cooking something so that I could have the satisfaction of seeing him eat what I had helped prepare, but I was too scared to go near him. And I had phases in my life where I used to run away. People, the thing is, dog barks, dog bites. Children's book, the fill in the blanks, you're going to talk about dog barks. So basically, and barking, because that's the only communication they have. But because it is a loud sound, you associate it with fear. But yeah, but over the period of time, I think, I had the good fortune of being around animals in my close family and, other places. So I had this, inherent attachment to animals. But I think the game changer was my first dog, tiger. So that's where you become so attached to a species, as I said, right from the puppy stage. And then I think I would credit tiger to probably changing a lot of things in my life, including my career goals, which I'm thankful to her for. Even whether it's a bad day, uh, whether it is, any kind of challenge that you have, you just spend like 30 minutes and you can forget a lot of the bad things in life, and you can have this very free dose of oxytocin and come back. So I think, but again, along with that, I would also say, because sometimes when you say this, people become very excited about having a pet. Having a pet is a huge responsibility. So if you cannot, I know it because I have pets. So I know there are sacrifices to make. If you can do it, do it. If you can't do it, there are a lot of other avenues to get that kind of, free oxytocin and be happy and come back. But yes, and I think, yeah, uh, even my career, I think I've never been happy, excited about any other kind of research apart from research involving animals. So I think everything in my life can be attached in some way to animals. It's very difficult to pick out something. And making me feel happy about what I'm doing. That's what's more important, I guess. You have to be happy about what you're doing.